Hello and welcome to another episode of the Meat Mafia podcast. On today's episode, the Meat Mafia is joined by the owner of Farrow Skincare, Charles Mayfield. Charles is a longtime Paleo proponent with over 15 years as a nutrition coach. He recently took the leap back into farming, and now he's launching his very own skincare product made from the simple ingredients of tallow and lard. His company is called Farrow Skincare, and our discussion with him talks about all the benefits associated with ditching the chemically induced skincare products you see in the stores for a simple product like his. This is a great conversation, so sit back and enjoy. All right, we're rolling with another episode of the Meat Mafia podcast. Today, we are joined by Charles Mayfield, the owner of Farrow Skincare. Charles, what is going on?
Well, I just got done tending to the chickens. Beautiful day in East Tennessee, and it's a busy time. We were joking before we hit record. I was a little late to our pre-interview chit chat, but yeah, this is a busy time of year on the farm. That's sort of the passion project of mine, is farming, regenerative farming. And anyway, yeah, chickens are out in the field and they need a little extra water and feed on a hot day. So
hey, priorities, man. The Meat Mafia does not come before the chickens.
Comes with the chickens.
Yeah. If it makes you feel any better, we tried to record a podcast the first time with Jason Rick, who's a regenerative farmer out of Colorado. I don't know if you know Jason, but we got like 20 minutes into it and then his Wi-Fi just completely shit out. And that's what happened. This is the game that the Meat Mafia plays when you're interviewing regenerative farmers. So we love it.
My first podcast was Slim, Texas Slim. I know you guys know Slim, and I met Jason I was at the first beef initiative conference in Kerrville about a month ago. So I met Jason there. He's a great guy. But yeah, Slim and I were on our first podcast, and he's out in Bumble, Texas somewhere, and we had to re-record it a couple of times. So I'm hanging on by a thread here, Wi-Fi wise.
Let's get to the goods then. So Charles, you started Farrow Skincare, but I think maybe a little background on your story leading up to that and how you got so passionate about this product that you've made, and also just the lifestyle that you're living, raising chickens, having a farm, where all this come from. I think it's a story a lot of people will resonate with.
Sure. So my Farrow represents sort of an amalgamation of a bunch of stuff. I grew up in the country, never really farmed. My family's business background was in the dairy business. But by the time I was coming of age, we were more of a milk bottler and less of a dairy farm. You don't do both these days, certainly not at scale. Mm-hmm. And so I went off to Georgia Tech, got a business degree from there, stayed in Atlanta, in fact, spent 27 years in Atlanta. And in that time, got in the financial services industry, insurance. I still do that as a day job now. But in about 2008-9, I was introduced to CrossFit through a boot camp in Atlanta, and latched onto that I was a high school athlete, probably college, low college level, but didn't play, and loved it. I mean, absolutely loved it. Got into CrossFit, ended up getting injured in CrossFit. If you know anything about CrossFit, it can be a little cantankerous. And the injury really pointed me in the direction of, well, I'm not working out twice a day now, so let's not balloon back up and get fat. And it just so happened a guy named Rob Wolf, who's founded, I think, the first and fourth CrossFit affiliates, he was running their nutrition certification. Mm-hmm. And so my girlfriend at the time and I went to Jacksonville, Florida, heard all about this. We were zoning at the time, the Barry Sears zone diet. And anyway, I went down there with all these questions about counting almonds and macros and micros. And Rob went through Sears, the zone diet at length, but we got to the end, and he really was starting to pitch this paleo concept as, just eat real food. Let's try to avoid some of these deleterious items that are more modern to our diet. And and that was really, we came home from that and just started cooking and making, all these fun meals. Fast forward a couple years, 2010, 11, Rob's first book came out, The Paleo Solution. And he happened to be in Atlanta promoting the book. Whenever we got together, Julie and I would always cook. And so we're all sitting around, enjoying some curry. And he's like, y'all need to write a cookbook. And so I was like, what? And he's like, well, my publisher, his book had literally just opened. He's like, my publisher's humping my leg to, write a cookbook. You do a lifestyle book, you follow it with a cookbook. And so I can't do y'all any justice. I'll introduce you to my publisher. And so literally like the next day we were talking to Victory Belt Publishing. So my ex-wife and I ended up writing 3 cookbooks and wrote the recipes to Rob's second book, Wired to Eat, but got into this paleo scene. And the first, I want to say the inaugural Paleo FX was out in Austin, Texas in 2012, I think is right. And so we were there and been on this journey ever since. Interestingly enough, so about 3 or 4 years into Paleo FX, this is I think I saw y'all tweet about wanting to get Sisson on your podcast. Mark, I'm going to vouch for these guys. They're doing great work. You need to definitely come on and let them talk to you. So that's how I know Mark through Paleo FX. And but anyway, you got the greatest minds, health, nutrition, lifestyle, biohacking, the whole 9. And everyone for the first 3 or 4 years is arguing over like protein, carbs, and fat, right? What are the ratios? What's the best? And it was crazy. Probably in 2015 or 16, the entire narrative of outside of like just performance and working out and all these things, the entire narrative around food shifted at this event. And it was really around sustainability and access, which was, all of a sudden, like the Farm to Consumer Legal Defense Fund has a booth there, and White Oak Pastures is there. And you see the epic guys, who did amazing things. All of this starts to really sprout up. The Savory Institute had a booth there one year. And so that's really where my interest in farming was sparked, was just the idea of access to clean local food. And, you learn the statistics. I think the average meal in the US travels like 1,800 miles farm to plate. It's laughable.
Wow.
And so I met along that route. I was introduced to the Farm to Consumer Legal Defense Fund. And it was their inaugural fundraiser at Polyface Farms in Virginia. And if you've never been, you should go. They have a fairly open door policy there. But again, my wife at the time, we took our 1-year-old up there, and actually, I think, he was just maybe 2 at most. And we cooked and helped with this fundraiser and got to see Polyface, and I didn't have the words for how inspiring and amazing that place was. And so I just started doing research, and Joel Salatin's written a gazillion books. And so I think Pastured Poultry Profits was my first book. But at the time we were running a gym, Atlanta Strength and Conditioning in Atlanta. And, the gym was doing okay, but things were weird. And anyway, we ended up moving to Tennessee with the idea of starting a farm. And again, my family's got this dairy-ish background, still has a family farm. I'm not on that property now, but moved in, and started with a test batch of chickens and pigs. And so that's where the farming started. I've got this culinary I'll tie all this together, I promise. That's where so I got this culinary background. I'm not a chef or anything, but I like to cook. And then I got this farming piece. And of course, I'm over here in the sort of the lifestyle coaching thing. And then in 2019, a couple of us started a hemp company. We were going to grow hemp. And so we were growing hemp. And at the time, Julie and I were going through our divorce. And so I was just, when you're going through stress, not everybody does this, but you just work your ass off, just to distract yourself from what's going on. And so July 5th, 2019, I had been working in the fields cultivating hemp for 48 straight hours.
Wow.
We had an irrigation thing go out, and that plant needs a lot of water. And so there was all these extenuating circumstances. But the bottom line was, if I was in the field in July for 48 straight hours and I didn't have a lot of sunscreen on, and of course, you bunch of guys, your shirt off, I came home and I was cooked, like literally and figuratively cooked. And medicine cabinet's empty. It's like 9 o'clock on a Friday night. What the heck am I going to do? And I cook, I've got all this rendered lard from my pigs that I cook with. And I was like, well, why not? Lathered up and felt good. Stuff soaked in. And I mean, y'all got your samples I sent you. It soaks in pretty quick, like a couple minutes, and it's like gone. And so I put it on at night, took a shower, went to bed, woke up the next morning, put it on again, went back out in the fields, didn't think anything of it. Put it on twice. In about 2 days, my sunburn was gone. And I thought, that's pretty cool. But I started watching my skin. And for the next 3 weeks, I was meticulous, because I was like, that's odd. But I never peeled. And y'all are athletes, and you do a lot of outdoor stuff. I mean, everybody's had a bad sunburn, and you always peel. And so, when that didn't happen, I was like, all right, well, DIY skin creams, lo and behold, I could make them early on. I was making different stuff with mixers and just kitchen top mixers, and the early formulas were all the standard formula, like an emulsification of water and fat. Could never keep it from going rancid, like within a week. And so at some point I was like, well, do I really need the water? I remember being with a chef in Atlanta, Todd Mussman. Todd, love you. They have a great restaurant group down there. I'm a foodie. Like, if I'm going to go out, I got to eat good food. Yeah. And so anyway, he helped me butcher a pig one time and took me over to their charcuterie room. And he's got this big stand-up, commercial Hobart mixer, and it's spinning around. There's this big white fluffy cloud in there. I was like, what in the world is that? He said, it's lardo. Lardo. He's like, yeah, it's powdered sugar and lard. So this is a high-end restaurant, Local 3, if you're ever in Atlanta, hit it up. And they were making homemade Little Debbie cookies.
Wow.
And this was the white filling. Oh, dude, I mean, just like,
how good was that?
Oh, out of this world. And so, but I'm sitting in the kitchen. And so again, fast forward back to 2019, I'm going, lardo. Well, hell, I'll just whip it. And so anyway, I killed the water and started doing research because I was researching preservatives and, can I use essential oils? There's some antimicrobial essential oils. Like, how can I make this product not go bad?
Right.
And, at some point it was like, no, you gotta get rid of the water. Which is when I started incorporating tallow. You guys have got the creams. It's got a good creaminess to it.
Yeah.
Like great cream.
So yeah. And so tallow and lard and leaf lard, which are the primary fats I use, they're all different textures and viscosities at room temperature. And so I sort of try to interplay them a little bit there's a different creaminess to the face food and a skin food. But anyway, long story short, Farrow was born. And I have a farm. I have about 40 or 50 customers in Atlanta, Chattanooga, locally for meat and eggs. So I spent about a year and a half. Good Lord, I don't know how many iterations I went through just developing different formulations and this, that, and the other. And I would just take cream to everybody. Try it. Give me your feedback.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, when the pandemic hit, there was a lot of uncertainty around access to slaughterhouses. And I mean, this is nothing you guys don't know. There was a whole lot of stuff going on, which was crazy because like demand for my products at the farm went through the roof.
Oh,
but
yeah.
It's not like I have a slaughterhouse that I own,
Right.
Not yet, maybe one day. But, I was still tinkering with the creams at the time, and I've got a very trusted friend that's very close to me. And I was just sort of lamenting, and he's like, man, you just need to push the gas pedal on that thing. And so got serious about it, tried a Kickstarter to fund it in 2021. And we didn't meet our goal, which is fine. Yeah. And rather than sort of spinning the wheels back on some other type of crowdfunding, I was like, man, I was fortunate. I had a small loan, EIDL loan, again, one of these COVID silver linings. And so we launched in January, launched Farrow. We've got 3 products right now. I got 1 million in the queue, but right now we've got a skin food, a face food, and then we have an elixir, which is CBD. So you put the elixir under your tongue, and that reduces inflammation and heals you from the inside out. And then the creams, again, face for the face and the skin for neck down. And man, you guys will get a couple of days into this, but I've never seen anything like it that moisturizes skin.
What if you had to explain the benefits to someone who was interested in buying the product, what sort of things would they notice after a few days of using the product?
Well, it soaks in really deep. And so I would even say you'll notice it the first day using the product, especially with the pandemic. We're washing our hands all the time. I put this stuff on and I can go wash my hands. I can go do dishes. I can go farm. I can come back and I've still got like a tacky, when your skin's moist, there's a tack to it. Right. It doesn't wash off because it soaks in. This isn't really a competitive advantage to talk about, but it's a fact. The creams are valuable more for what's not in them than what is. Now, I will say that lard is specifically better at I believe, moisturizing and penetrating into human skin than tallow. I use tallow as well. I like them both. But yeah, the biology of a pig is effectively a human. I mean, if for your listeners that don't know, I mean, we train our surgeons on that's somebody have y'all talked to Dr. Phil Ovadia?
We have.
Oh, good. Yeah, Dr. O's the man.
He's one of our boys.
Yeah. Oh, dude, I love that guy. So I was on his podcast and Jack was running all the podcasts and asking questions, and I finally pointed at Phil. I was like, you got to admit it, man. You trained, as a surgeon, you trained on pigs. And he's like, oh yeah, we use pig organs to transplant into humans, heart valves and all sorts of stuff. So biologically, pigs are very similar to humans. What does that mean? It means they metabolize, the trifecta of skincare vitamins naturally the same way we do. So vitamins A, E, and D. You give a pig sunlight, fresh water, and healthy, happy environment, and move them around so they're not stuck in their own poop, for weeks and weeks and weeks. And they metabolize all of the vitamins that our skin and our body. I mean, you can eat lard too. It's fantastic. But man, when it goes on the skin, it's just, it's a miracle.
Yeah. I mean, when you talk about a lack of ingredients, right? First of all, I love the logo. It's so clean.
Brett, show that up to the camera.
Yeah. Hopefully people can see it, but it's really nice, clean. And this just came in the box in a package today, but literally this is the full list of ingredients: lard, tallow, leaf lard, honey, and then essential oils, which is grapefruit, lavender, sandalwood. And so you contrast that to the average skincare product that's out there now. It's like half the time I can't even pronounce the ingredients. And I'm noticing too, my skin has gotten very sensitive over the years, and all that shit just makes me break out, where like it just has like a very clean smell to it. It applies great. And I'm just really excited to use it, because of course I want skincare products, but I want it to be animal-based. And I want it to be something that actually I believe in from a principle perspective, that's chemical free, right?
So there are 11 prohibited chemicals by the FDA in our skincare. 11. Just to put some perspective on that, the EU has a list of over 1,300 prohibited or limited chemicals and preservatives allowed in their skincare.
Wow.
Yeah. It's shocking. And this gets into, so this is the rabbit hole I'm going down now. You know, I mentioned to you guys before we went live, I feel like this is the mountain I got to die on now. There's plenty of people promoting like carnivore and keto, and it's like, okay, let me jump over here in skincare. I got 2 young kids too. So the Food, Drug, and Cosmetics Act of 1938 is the preeminent federal, I guess, regulatory act. Okay. The only part of that act, the only thing that is testable and troublesome in cosmetics is color additives. Mm-hmm. Right. So they don't have to prove any health risks or potential problems for any other ingredient in skincare other than any color additives that are going in your cosmetics. And I know that's a really broad category.
Yeah.
Okay. And so, you know, you start looking into parabens, you start looking into formaldehyde, you start looking into talc. I mean, I think Johnson & Johnson just paid a couple $2 billion out in a settlement over talc in the last couple of years. You know, a lot of that was sparked by, so they finally, you know, I forget what it's called, the wherever the, what's the VAERS, the vaccine reporting. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, so they have something similar. It's Consumer Product Safety. No. What is it? Center for Food Safety and Applied Nutrition's Adverse Event Reporting System, SARES. Anyway, so they start that thing back in like 2006. And just on the data alone from like 2004 to 2017, the prevalence of talc-related reported ovarian cancer alone is what sparked that lawsuit, is my understanding. But the point is, if you think they let bad crap in our food, you're just scratching the surface on, and you know, people think skincare and they think females, and I cater to a predominant female market, but I'm thrilled to be talking to you guys. And here's why, is because parabens are an estrogen signaling byproduct. Okay. And that usually gets athletic, you know, testosterone driven guys ears perked. It's like, why in the world would you want to put something on your skin that over time is going to signal it to produce more estrogen?
Yes.
And our skin is so absorbent, like it takes in people don't realize how much we take in just through our skin alone. It's our body's largest organ and it's working nonstop. And when you put something on there, it absorbs. Like it doesn't not just go into your body.
Well, and it absorbs directly into the bloodstream.
Yeah.
You know, you put something in your mouth. Now, obviously it can absorb through the skin in the mouth, but once it's in the gut, it's up to the body to let it in. People don't understand that, but you know, your GI tract is basically a tunnel through a mountain, right? It's not the mountain. And so you do have, I mean, I say this to folks, it's like you've eaten something that didn't agree with you, right? And it usually comes out the front side or the back side in a not so preferable fashion. And so we've got these protective gastrointestinal mechanisms in place for stuff. That's not the case with skin. Now, the skin does have, you know, it's a semi-permeable membrane, which is where the cosmetic companies are really good at, you know, tricking your skin, but it has to do with pH and a number of other things that factor into absorbability. The funny thing is, though, if you take a traditional skin moisturizer and you spread it on your arm and it's wet and it's wet and it's wet, and then all of a sudden it's dry, people think that's because it's soaking in. The vast majority of the time, it's actually not, because it's 75% water. What's happening is the water's evaporating. Now, stuff will still get in the skin. Again, and all these parabens and talcs and various chemicals and preservatives, they are getting in, and they're getting directly into the bloodstream. And that's a problem.
Charles, what's your view on sunscreen? Because I know that's a hot topic now. Most sunscreens have tons, their ingredient lists are crazy long. Are most of those something that you are reading a label of pretty consciously?
I don't use sunscreen. Now that's not a popular approach. I'm developing a sunscreen product using, I mean, that's in the works. Now with an SPF rating, you've got to go through the FDA, and 2023, the goal is to have a product that offers some level of SPF protection. You know, the prevalence of skin cancer in this country has gone up precipitously as the use of sunscreen has also gone up precipitously. And so you have to sort of ask, you know, it's like, what came first, the chicken or the egg kind of thing. There's a lot of research being done, or not being done, but there's a lot of speculation now that seed oils are having a horrific effect on our metabolic health. And I would say skincare is directly related to that. And so, you know, it's probably a combination of, we're not outside all the time. We're not acclimating to the sun. I mentioned I went out to the chickens before our call, and, you know, it's probably a 5-minute walk out to the chickens. And, you know, I'm out there for 15, 20 minutes, and then, you know, a 5-minute walk back. Well, I take my shirt off, you know, it's 2 o'clock in the afternoon here. I think, hold on, let me make sure I got this right. If your shadow doesn't, if you're at this latitude and your shadow doesn't cast a shadow taller than you are, then there's enough direct sunlight where you're getting all your vitamin D. And what do they, you know, like 15, 20 minutes a day is all the exposure you need. Yeah. So, you know, I took my kids to the lake this past weekend. Did I put sunscreen on them? Yes. I'd rather them have sunscreen, but we also, you know, we put hats on them, and we make sure, you know, every few minutes we come out of the sun and just take a break. And so I'm strategic about my sun exposure. And if I get sunburned, I've got this amazing miracle cream that, you know, we're gonna burn.
Yes.
You know, that's not terrible. This was the light bulb moment. Honestly, I thought skin cancer. Okay, well, cancer is it's a cellular defect that manifests and over replicates. So it's like, well, if I didn't peel, right, then I'm not forcing my cells to make more skin, right? And so maybe that's part of the formula. It's not the whole formula. It's got this seed oils and bad diet, and people do. I mean, I'm guessing our ancestors 1,000 years ago probably weren't out and about in the middle of the day most of the time. It was early mornings, it was late afternoons.
That's exactly right. Yeah.
Yeah. No, I think you're spot on. And I do think that there's a good amount of anecdotal testimonials that we're seeing of people that are saying, hey, look, since I've cut seed oils out of my diet, I tan way better. That's definitely true. But I also think, to your point, people don't really know how to build a base of, like, go outside with your shirt off for 15, 20 minutes. Don't just go to Miami and then crisp in the sun for 3 hours when you haven't been outside. It's like, no shit, you're getting fried in the sun. But what I'm interested in, Charles, is, so the medication that I used to take for my colitis gave me terrible cystic acne. I've never had issues with my skin until I started taking this drug. And I started noticing that when I was using conventional sunscreens, my cystic acne would, like, chronically break out of my back. And my ex-girlfriend made a homemade sunscreen that had, like, zinc, cow, probably like 4 or 5 things. And I noticed that with that specific type of sunscreen, I wouldn't break out, and I also didn't burn either. So I'm personally I would love to order some of that sunscreen that I know that, because, you know, there are certain places, like if I'm going to Costa Rica or something like that, it would be nice to have another layer of protection, but know that I'm actually putting something clean on my skin that's going to protect it. It's going to moisturize it, and I don't have to worry about something that's going to make my skin break out.
Yeah. So I have tinkered with and played with skincares, or with sunscreens, and they worked. Again, I'm just not at a place where I can push into I think it's a 6-month FDA trial where they test and do all that fun stuff. You know, one of the beauties about the world we live in today is we've also got all this tactical clothing, right? And so whether you're going to Costa Rica or, on a triathlon or whatever the case may be, we have the means now to, in a very lightweight, breathable, sun protective way, cover our skin.
Yes.
Which is beautiful. I mean, we need the vitamin D, right? We need the exposure. Sun feels great. I don't know how people live in Seattle and Portland, some of these places that don't ever see the sun hardly. Good for them, but so we need that exposure. And again, fortunately today, now I will say I do put skin food on my skin before I go out in the sun. I have no anecdote. I mean, do I get burned every now and then? Does my skin feel great? It does. I have zero evidence that it's helping, but I also grew up. How old are you two?
28.
27. Yeah. Same.
Okay.
Age.
Okay. I feel old. I'm 48. So I grew up watching my mom's from Mobile, Alabama, and we'd always go down for a week or two in the summer, stay on the bay, the whole awesomeness. And I can still smell the Panama Jack. It smelled sort of like coconut and banana oil. It was like number 6 dark tanning oil. I spent my entire childhood watching my parents smear that all over themselves, and they were fine.
Yeah.
We were out in the sun all day.
Yeah.
So,
there's the acclimation part, I think, is probably key to just like your skin's going to adapt the more you're in the sun. I know I had experimented, I'd gotten off of all the seed oils, and I was hearing all this data out there around people talking about not getting sunburn again. And I went down and was in direct sunlight for a week straight. And of course, my skin at first was not used to the sun. So I got a little bit burnt, but then once I had that base, I've been walking around since then without any issues of sun exposure for multiple hours outside. So I do think the acclimation element is obviously a key part of just your relationship with the sun, and how it can obviously be one of these things that will, create sunburn and cause some sun damage. But if you're getting used to it slowly, I think eventually your body just builds up an adaptation to it.
Mm-hmm.
And awareness too. I mean, for the first time, if you want to talk about in evolutionary human history, in the first time in over forever, let's just call the last 200 or 300 years, or even 500 years, I can have the genetics of someone, born on the African, Sahara or Brazil. I can have the melanin and the genetic sun exposure from years and years and years of my ancestors growing up there, and I can be in a completely different climate in 24 hours.
Yeah.
So it sort of begs the question, does a 23andMe or so, that would be an important thing for people to know.
Yeah.
Where they come from genetically, because you're going to be predisposed to either crisp up or not quicker. That's the craziness. Even getting into some of these food sensitivities, and forgetting all the leaky gut and all that fun stuff, but just the idea that you can be in a completely different part of the world in less than a day, eating cuisine that you've, in theory never had. Of course, we ship all this stuff around the world now, so I can have almost any food I want. I just got to go to a big farmer's market in a big city. But
no, that's a great point. And Charles, something we wanted to ask you, we're definitely starting to see some emerging skincare brands that are doing a great job that have tallow based products. I think Van Man, he's a great guy. Base Balm, there are a couple other awesome truth seekers out there that want to create healthier products. You're the only company that we've come across that uses lard as opposed to tallow. Is there a particular, is there a benefit to lard versus tallow? Is there a reason why you chose lard? I know you had that anecdotal experience where you put the lard on after the sunburn, but just would love to just learn a little bit more about that.
So I think that there might be, I use tallow in my product. I think it's a fantastic animal fat for human skin. I'm going to mention too, if you don't know them, Toops and Company, Toops and Co. I think they're out of Fairhope, Alabama. They're amazing. And they've got a whole list of products that are fantastic, including deodorant. I can't wait to try making deodorant. You know, we're an animal. The skincare world is dominated by plant-based fats or seed oils. I'm sure most of the garbage is seed oil, but it's mostly plant-based fats. Mm-hmm. And so it makes sense to me that sort of the first to market folks out there were using tallow. First of all, tallow is it stores in a balm form way easier. It's hard at room temperature. And so when you ship it and things of that nature, I struggle with this because if the package that you guys got in the mail had gotten really, really hot, it melts. And you just shake it up and stick it in the refrigerator for half an hour and you're good to go. But it's a little bit more susceptible to temperature. Having said that, I don't have any scientific studies behind this, but I do understand that the biology of a pig is way more aligned with the biology of a human. I love cows. They're delicious. They're fun. And their fat is fantastic for skin. It's also fantastic to cook with. I would think, again, back to the biological symmetry between humans and pigs. I think that our skin recognizes that a little bit better as a moisturizer, which again, the number one feedback I get from people is it just soaks in so deep and stays there, again, past washings and work and all that fun stuff. How I'm the first, I went to the Weston A. Price. So I early launched last November in Allen, Texas at the Weston A. Price Foundation. If you're not familiar with Weston A. Price, you guys ought to look them up.
Yeah.
And I'm thinking, I'm coming in there and I'm like, all right, if anyone else in the world is making lard cream, they're going to be here.
Right.
Nobody.
Really.
And it's a funny story. You all see the brand, and we went through about 6 months of like stressful brand work. Like, what are we going to call this? What's going to be our image? And there were a couple people that were like, man, you can't talk about, like, the conversation was like, how can you hide lard, as an ingredient? And I mean, the logo is a pig. I mean, I'm like front and center, baby. Pigs are my favorite animal on the farm. Yeah. And so I'm not here poo-pooing tallow at all. I use it. I do think that lard offers some additional potential benefits, but again, who's going to fund the double-blind placebo study to figure it out? Nobody.
Yeah. Well, it just speaks to how ass backwards our entire concept and understanding of nutrition is. And we have to basically dewire people's brains of multiple decades worth of just garbage being taught that saturated fat is terrible for you. There's literally a negative association between lard and metabolic health, which is such bullshit. And it's so ass backwards. And what we need to keep doing is keep having conversations like this, make people, and I think too, the proof is in the pudding. So the more that we can continue to show just before and after testimonials of people actually using products like this and having amazing results, and people are realizing, wow, this guy's making products that have 4 to 5 ingredients. It smells great. It moisturizes my skin. People will start to realize, oh, okay, what we've been taught just isn't correct at all.
So I've got about 15 years in the saddle of like nutrition coaching. Yes. And we all know it's like they'll eat this and this, but you tell them to eat lard or a steak and they lose their minds. I'm just now entering into the skincare world, and I get the same thing. It's like, you want me to put lard on my face? And I'm like, give me your product. Yeah. You're going to put, there's 50 ingredients on there that you can't pronounce. And you're like, you're totally good. Yeah. Put this on your face. Yeah. But, what's going on here? So, yeah, I mean, in a lot of ways, I want to make the claim that this is a very common sense product. The thing that's the scariest to me, again, is we're just scratching the surface on the long-term effects of parabens, the talc, the formaldehydes, all the things that they put in our skincare. And, I've got a young daughter. She's almost 8. And it's these little investments in poor skin nutrition every day or every week that, eventually potentially manifest into real problems. And we know the kind of stuff that they hide from us in terms of in the food side of this, the meta study where they basically claimed meat or bacon was a carcinogen. They took that data and manipulated it around. Yeah. Yes, a meat eater is more likely to smoke, drink, stay up late, do all these crazy things. But if you isolated that meta study, which this has been done, if you isolate that meta study on, okay, how about the meat eaters that don't smoke, drink, and stay out late? Well, their longevity wise, their numbers are on par with everybody else or better. But they manipulate this data. The FDA, good Lord, the food pyramid. I mean, literally. So that's actually a really good paradigm. Take the food pyramid. What do they say? What do we say? You should literally invert it, right? So I don't know what the correlative analogy is for skincare, but it's like, if it sits on a shelf, you probably shouldn't put it on your skin because there's crap in there. I'll tell y'all a funny story. One of my fraternity brothers, his ex-wife was a C-level skincare gal for years, very, very sharp woman. And I called her, I was like, just pick her brain. This is early on. I pick her brain, you're in the skincare world. Just first question out of her mouth. So what's the shelf life of your product? At the time I didn't know, but I guess I was like, probably 6 to 8 months. She's like, you don't have a product. What do you mean I don't have a product? Well, standard shelf life is at least a year, in some cases 2. Otherwise you don't have a product. And I'm sitting here going, well, that doesn't make any sense. And one of the beauties of this world that we live in today from a logistics standpoint is, I can make something fresh right here in our manufacturing facility, and I can have it, in your hands in 3 or 4 days.
Yep.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
So in fact, skincare is one, but think, food and all. I mean, we could literally get really healthy stuff in people's hands, freshly made, in almost any aspect of health and wellness. And so
think about the fact that, right, we were going back and forth on Twitter. We decided, we said, hey, would love for you to come on the podcast. And you're like, all right, well, if I'm going to come on the podcast, well, let me give you guys some product to try. You literally made the product, shipped it to us, and now we have it right here. And I can literally look on the screen and see your production facility. It's that concept is so foreign to so many people, right? Like you just said, it's just made in some factory overseas and it just sits on the shelf for however long. We talk about connection with food all the time, but there's also I think we're going to go back to just connection for skincare products and things like that, of like, you want something that's, made with minimal ingredients, who's making it. Why would you put something on your skin that's been sitting in a lab with all these, banned ingredients on it? It's insane.
Well, and it's the product itself is so rich in all the vitamins and things that these other skincare products claim that they're going to provide you. I mean, vitamin A, D, and E are just loaded in like Tallow's loaded with that. So, it's not like you're missing out on any of the other stuff too that these other products are claiming that they're going to give you. You're just getting the benefits of a nice, clean, simple product, which I think probably most people just, if it's too simple, they're just afraid of it. Like, they're like, oh, there must be something wrong with it. But I do think that, it's the same thing with the diet. It's like people are always looking for the silver bullet, like Weight Watchers or whatever it is. It's like, here you go. Here's just eat whole foods and eat like single ingredient foods, and you'll be 90% healthier in a month.
Yep.
Well, I will say I do think Farrow gives folks a little bit of a silver bullet, especially if you're already moisturized, if you're already going through the process of this. and I'll say this, no one's been using this stuff longer than me. I mean, I'm like the number one test dummy, and I actually need less of it now than I did a year ago. I mean, it takes less to get the same job done. And so I do feel like this is, it's a lasting kind of thing. I mean, you guys have done this before. I don't even use chapstick anymore because my lips have never felt drier than 2 or 3 hours after applying whatever chapstick du jour it is.
Right.
This stuff's not, it's like the diet industry. It's built on your failure, not your success.
Yeah.
So, we've got something here, and I like that a little goes such a long way. I mean, our face food's like a 1 ounce container. I've got a gal. She's a dear friend of mine. She's one of my early testers down the road in Cleveland. And she loves this stuff. I mean, she's a moisturizing queen. And so she'll go through a good jar right at a month, sometimes a couple of weeks. I'll get the phone call. But she loves it. And, but for most folks, a little goes a really long way. And, I mean, Lord, guys, I've got it in my hair right now. It's shaved as an after balm.
Charles, I don't know if you saw this, but I put a thread out there on how to make tallow balm, and I put it out there. This was my first experience trying to make it, and this was probably 2 weeks ago, and I was using it, first time using a tallow-based product, and I was seeing all the things that you're talking about, just like skin started feeling amazing, was putting it in my hair before I was going to bed and rinsing it off in the morning, and just was loving the benefits of just like the richness of my skin was totally, I mean, not that it was something that anyone else would really notice, but I could feel it, like my skin was less irritable. And some of the things that I was running into making it, I was like, man, I wish I had someone to ask these questions to. So my one question for you in the production side of it is, so when I made it, I was worried that it wouldn't be able to last just outside of the refrigerator. It's totally fine just on the shelf, right?
Yeah. I'll ask you a quick question. You ever cook bacon?
Yep.
Yeah. What do you do with the drippings?
Pour it into a jar.
Pour them in a jar.
Yep.
Now, do you put it in your fridge?
I do put it in my fridge because I have the same thing where I'm like, I think this needs to be refrigerated, and like there's nothing clear on the internet whether or not it needs to be or not.
Full disclosure, I refrigerate my lard for 2 reasons, or my bacon drippings. I eat a lot of bacon, and so sometimes I can't keep up with the bacon dripping production. Right. But I grew up with my mom cooking bacon, and there was a metal tin on her kitchen counter, and it would be months, if not more months, before that would ever go bad. Like you'd use it before it would go bad. And so again, water is what feeds bacteria and mold. Right. And so I don't know if you're familiar with the concept of confit cooking, where you cook something in its own fat and then you let the fat cap over the top, and then you can leave duck confit is one of my favorites. You can leave a duck confit recipe in a Dutch oven on your stovetop off, for days and days, and it actually really melds all the flavors and everything. But as long as that fat cap's there, none of the bad stuff can get in. So it will go bad at some point, Harrison. Right. I mean, and again, if it doesn't spoil, do you really want to put it on your skin?
Right.
And so I don't have a made on date on my products yet. I probably should at some point, but I give people it's a 6 months. Yeah. And I have product, and I'm down to 6 tubs that I made a year and a half ago, and I open them all up every now and then. Now, the fat in them is still good. When fat goes rancid, pretty quick.
Yeah.
The reason I tell people 6 months is because I use all natural essential oils, and they'll diffuse over time. And so my scented cream, at some point, it's going to diffuse. Mm-hmm. And so it's also a consumable. Like if you're not using this in 6 months, throw it away. Go through your medicine cabinet and how much crap in there you hadn't used in the last year. And so, but again, if it doesn't spoil, you shouldn't eat it. And if it doesn't spoil, I'm making the argument you shouldn't put it on your skin either.
Yeah, I think that sentiment goes for consuming food in general. It's like if it has a shelf life of 5 years, do you really want to be eating it? Probably not.
I mentioned Joel Salatin earlier. Again, if you're not familiar with his work, but he has a thing on his farm where he used to, I think he still does, for the summer school groups, and they have a worm bin, and they ask the school to bring a McDonald's cheeseburger or something of that effect. And so while the kids are there, they'll stuff the McDonald's cheeseburger in one side of the worm bin and a fresh cooked burger from their farm in the other side. And then the school kids come back a week later, and you can literally dig out the entire McDonald's burger. And it's like, if a worm won't eat it, why should you?
Yeah, 100%. I love it.
There's
Charles,
another. Yeah, go ahead.
Go ahead. No, you go ahead.
Well, there's another aspect of this that I'm just exploring, and again, it gets into the nefarious, these preservatives and chemicals. You got, first of all, you've got all the hormone signaling problems that are created. The other problem, and this is something that really hit me early in the pandemic. I got COVID December of 2020. December of 2020.
You're one of the first ones.
I early adopter, baby. Bring on the alpha. And I'll tell you this as a reference. I'll never forget this. I had a guy coming to the farm that morning. If you look up Nature's Always Right, Stephen Cornett, he's a fantastic farming guy. I had Stephen coming to the farm in Decatur to do a walkthrough around the farm and talk about our operation. He had just moved to Tennessee. And I forget about all this until like 3 months later, but I wasn't feeling good that night. Texted him early the next morning. I was like, look, man, I don't feel great. I'm good, but just warning you, if you don't want to. And he's like, nah, man, I don't care. Come on. And so, it was 3 or 4 months later that he finally edited all the videos and posted on his YouTube channel. And I was like, oh my God. Cause I tested later that afternoon and I got COVID. But the point is, I had COVID, so I'm on house arrest. It was actually one of the more relaxing Christmases of my life because I didn't have to go anywhere. Missed my kids, but it was pretty bomb. But I decided to clean my kitchen one day, and I'm looking around. This is an old milking parlor apartment on the farm where I live, and I'm looking around. And I'm going, how in the world could I ever get this place super clean, like sterile clean? I don't know that I could. And it occurred to me, and this relates to the skincare. It occurred to me, we're so hyper sanitized now, more so now post pandemic. But think about even pre-pandemic, you could go to the store and buy something that would kill every single germ, bug, and microbe in your entire house like that. And our skin, we have bugs, microbiome bugs living on us and in us all over our body. And, again, back to this evolutionary template, we have learned over the course of human history to live and thrive with these organisms. They're very helpful to us. In fact, a lot of them are instrumental in hormone regulation inside of our body. All the SIBO and bacterial overgrowth and problems. Well, these skincare products they're disrupting, if not killing, the bacteria that live on our skin.
Yep.
And again, when you go on a probiotic, they're like, you want to feed the good bugs. Well, Farrow wants to feed the good bugs.
Yep.
Certainly not kill the good bugs. And so that's another aspect of this that I think is critical.
Yeah, we live in this society of just like overly sterilized guts and have just completely depleted all the good bacteria. And people don't realize, it's like you said, you want your probiotic and you drink your kombucha and you eat your kimchi and your kraut. And the same goes for, animal-based forms of nutrition too. We've both gotten pretty big into, have you gotten into Agenus Vonderplanets at all? Does that name ring a bell?
Not yet, but I'm taking notes.
This is a trench, and Agenus is AAJONUS, and then it's Vonderplanets. But if you just type in Agenus, he'll pop up.
Yeah,
Yeah, a unique
Only
name.
guy out there.
Yeah, the only Ogenus. He created this concept of a raw primal diet of just incorporating way more raw foods, raw organ meats, raw ground beef, raw milk, raw cream, etc. And it's interesting because as a society, we prize these things like salmon, sashimi, carpaccio, tartare, and we're so disgusted by the concept of raw foods. But it's like that's like the most non-denatured type of food that you can put into your body. And from a digestive perspective, it's pretty incredible. So you just reminded me of that when you were talking, Charles.
Well, yeah. If you look at the anthropologists have figured out, I think it was the brain, the kidney, the tongue, the liver. These were all preferential. Like the meat was the last thing to go, whether that was a human predator or an animal predator. I'm on the farm here, right? And you can tell what attacked your chickens by what's left behind.
Mm-hmm.
And I will tell you, the thing that's always left behind is some portion of the chicken's body, but they will take the head, they'll take the vitals, and they're out of there, because that's what a predator does. It's like, in, get my stuff, and I'm out. But it's a raccoon if you're missing a head. And what is the possum? Possum does something else. And of course, it's just a big ball of feathers everywhere if it's a hawk, because they just
come in and get the kill. What's been some of your learning experiences starting the farm? Because you said this was relatively new for you in terms of farming. 27 years of experience in financial services, then becoming a farmer. That's an amazing story.
Well, thank you, man. I'm still learning every day, and I have to say, again, a big thank you. He's been very generous with his time and talent. Joel Saddleton's been an amazing mentor to me. He's got all of his books, but at some point you got to learn by trial by fire,
right?
And gosh, I think I've been to Polyface. I call it Mecca. I think I've been to Polyface like 12 times now. But gosh, what have I learned? Be patient. Regenerative farm, I mean, it's a lot of work, but I tell people it's not a lot of work every day, but it's work every day. And I'm fortunate. I've got a guy here on the farm that helps me so that I can go to work and go see my kids in Atlanta, or go to Paleo FX, things of that nature. But just being patient, accepting from day one that everything's your fault.
Yeah.
If an animal dies, it was my fault.
Right.
It's always my fault. But no, it teaches you to slow down. I mean, you're subjected to the elements. That's an amazing, humbling and nurturing environment where, I would say for an athlete, you can relate to this. It's like, it doesn't matter. I got to go, I got to go train. I got to go do that. The chickens don't care how cold it is. They don't care if it's raining. There's things that got to get done. And so it just gives you a little bit of a perspective that's helpful.
That's awesome. I mean, I love those simple nuggets that people tend to lose perspective of when things get busy or when things get complicated, as we know they do in life. Life will throw all sorts of things at you, but when you can come back to the simplicity of just, be patient, take ownership of the things that are good and bad that are happening. I think those things are huge, even if you're not even on a farm. Just good, simple life advice.
Yeah.
Well, it's making food's kind of cool.
That's got to be awesome. Just making, and as a chef too, someone who likes to cook.
Don't call me chef, man. You'll get me in trouble with my chef. A hack cook. No, I mean, it completes the circle. Again, in the nutrition fitness training world, food's paramount, but the thing you recognize is that gathering around the supper table and sharing a meal is like, it's paramount. I mean, we've lost a lot of that, this digital world. The other thing that I appreciate now more than ever, what other people do for a living. People, I've had a lot of people come out to the farm and they they're like, oh, you make this look so easy. And I'm like, that's because you don't know anything. And so that perspective, when I look at someone else I'm grateful for their successes and their skills and their talents. And I was like, oh my gosh, yes, I don't understand what you're doing, but I understand how hard you work to do it. And so, and man, you guys know this, you're getting meat from Jason. I mean, the taste and it just doesn't get any better.
No, there's no going back after you have it.
No.
Yeah, there's no going back. And not to change topics, but you're talking about yourself as you're being very humble. I wanted to thank you because I read Wired to Eat in the summer of 2019, when I was really starting to change my own relationship with nutrition and trying to use diet to heal my journey with ulcerative colitis. And so Wired to Eat was one of the first books that made me question the food that I was putting into my body, and just made me realize that there was a better system out there. And there are so many incredible recipes at the end of the book to give you really creative ways to make a couple different ingredients taste really good. So that book for me was like, it was as foundational as it gets. Like, it's right up there with like Mark Sisson and all these other, Sean Baker, all these other incredible guys. So, I mean, that was huge for me. So I just wanted to thank you for that, because that book changed my entire life.
Well, you're welcome. Rob deserves most of the credit, and obviously Julie Sullivan, my ex-wife, she's unbelievably talented, and ran the show. I mean,
as they do.
I was just getting into farming when we were finishing up the recipes for that book. So, and Rob's man, you don't know how lucky, Rob was the first guy I met really that ever talked to me heart and soul about nutrition. And he is just incredible. So yeah, to have his book be one of the first ones you got your hands on is really cool.
We're lucky. Yeah, we actually, Clemenza was able to reach out to Rob and get him to come on the podcast. So he's coming on June 18th. So we'll definitely make sure to mention that we had you on too. He's just literally every single person in the industry that talks about him only has the most positive things to say. It's incredible.
He's the best. I'm very grateful to have had Rob in my life. Of course, they're in Montana now, and I'm a member of his Healthy Rebellion. I'm not as active right now as I would like to be, but I love being able to dive in there. And again, it's a real shame that someone of his conviction and knowledge and applied knowledge. I mean, here's a guy that walks the freaking walk, right?
Yeah.
He's been pushed out here and into the fringe world. That's his voice needs to be main stage anywhere. Sisson's another one. Sisson's fantastic.
Yeah. It's this grassroots movement that I think people, you can't extinguish all of it, and everyone kind of needs to lean on each other a little bit. I think that's kind of how the grassroots movements get some gravity to them. And where Rob might be getting censored in one area, there's Mark who's getting his voice out there, and hopefully we can all just get these messages out there, because I think that a lot of people are looking to get healthier and figure out their own health problems without the guidance of people who have steered them in the wrong direction for decades at this point. So it's just exciting getting to be able to meet people like yourself and Rob and have these great conversations. We recorded 2 other podcasts today, and they were both just like killer, some about cooking, some about sourcing good quality food. And these are all the conversations that we just get obsessive about and get excited about, because there's obviously a lot more people out there than just us who want to hear this stuff.
Yeah. I think Texas Slim, my buddy, is one of the instrumental people in getting us together today. And one of the things that was exciting to me about when I first met him is, here's a guy, he's over in sort of IT Bitcoin world, right? And all of a sudden he's interested in this, and I'm learning about Bitcoin by the day, but I've heard about nodes, and I feel like from a nutrition, health, hopefully skin, but metabolic health, Philovedi is another great one, but there's these nodes. We're growing nodes around the country. And so the more nodes we get, the harder it is to silence, these messages and give people access to, real food, metabolic health, real, information, good information. It's about having the good information to make your own decisions. And so I absolutely applaud what you guys are doing. I'm incredibly grateful to be on here today. And if there's, again, anything else I can do to help you guys, and hopefully we'll meet in person.
We need to make it happen. Appreciate the kind words there too. Charles, where's the best way for people to get into touch with you, and then also for them to buy some product?
Sure. So farrow.life, that's FARROW.life is our website. Instagram is Farrow Skin, and Twitter is, y'all probably know my Twitter handle better than me. Twitter is, I'm a Twitter neophyte, but the website's the best spot to go. For your listeners, they can use the code Mafia, MAFIA, and they'll save 20% off their first purchase. Little shout out to you two for having me on today. And but yeah, the website's probably the best. And then Farrow Skin on Instagram. Those are I'm active there, even though social media is not my. When I'm farming, I don't like think to pull a camera out and let me capture this moment for my viewing audience. It's like, no, I need to. It's the same with my kids. I'm like, phone goes away. I do shoot some stuff. I got some really cute kids. I'll tell you guys a quick funny story. So my kids asked me, they help me right with the farm. Mm-hmm. And my daughter loves helping me with skincare. And so a month ago, they were like, Daddy, we really, how's it going? I mean, I tell them everything. I was like, all right, guys, we're launching. All right, how's the launch going? I mean, it lights you up when they're so curious. And so about a month ago, they're like, we want business cards. Heck yeah. So I just got the kids' business cards in, and I sat them down this weekend, and I put a discount code together for them.
I love it.
For both of them, the same discount code. So we had over dinner on Saturday. I said, all right, so here's the deal. Here are your cards. You give them to anybody you want, and you guys get a commission for everybody that uses your discount code. Well, they're just anyway. I won't share their commission on your platform because
they'll get all the sales.
That's right. Well, we know, but they're my muse, man. They're Adeline's almost 8, and Scott will be 10 in December. And I have an older son, Dylan, who's doing great, but and he's been helpful as well. So anyway,
that's awesome.
Yeah, your mission is you can really feel your mission and your passion, and I think a lot of other people are going to feel that too. So we're just excited to now be friends with you and just spread the message as much as possible, because we want to use this platform as a voice for guys like you that are trying to do incredible things and change our system to give people healthier alternatives to what's available. So I think a ton of people are going to get value from this. We're just excited to use more Farrow products and just see everything that you go on to accomplish over the next couple of years.
Well, thank you both. I'm absolutely thrilled to be here.
Thanks, Charles.